I call to order the December 9th, 2022 meeting of the Alabama Environmental Management Commission. We have a quorum present. The first item is the commission will consider the minutes of the commission meeting held on October 14th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion from the commission regarding adoption of the minutes. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question by requesting that all those in favor signify by raising their right hand. Seeing that it is unanimous, I call for the question by requesting that all those in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. All those in favor? All those, since there was no opposition, all those opposed to the motion signify for the right hand. The motion is adopted unanimously. Agenda item 2, report from the ADM director.
Good morning to all those present for the second meeting of the Alabama Environmental Management Commission for FY 2023. In 1982, the Alabama Department of Environmental Management was formed. Today's report will focus on the 40th anniversary of the department. I'll also introduce you to a group of individuals who have accomplished a milestone that will affect the future of ADM, and close out with a report on the progress in construction of the Mobile Field Office and Laboratory. I have my clicker here. Is this one on? Okay, we're good. I'm technically challenged, but in the 1940s and 1950s, increased industrialization was taking place in many places around the world. A number of significant air pollution events resulted in the immediately attributable deaths of thousands in large industrial cities, including several in the United States. The lack of clean water and the improper disposal of solid and hazardous waste, resulting in significant health problems, was also prompted increasing levels of concern. Beginning as early as 1948, Alabama began addressing environmental issues by creating the Water Improvement Commission shortly after the adoption of the Federal Water Protection Control Act of 1948. In the 1960s, our nation saw many social changes. Among those changes was an even greater awareness of our environment. Poor air and water quality in industrialized areas began receiving stepped-up national attention. Toxic waste sites likewise made the national news. In the 1970s, in response to the growing environmental concerns, Congress passed the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, and the Resource Conservation Recovery Act. In Alabama, numerous functional areas within the State Department of Health, as well as other separate commissions and boards, began addressing environmental issues by implementing provisions of those federal statutes. In 1982, then Governor Fob James and the Alabama legislature determined it would be desirable to create a single new entity to deal with environmental issues in an efficient, comprehensive, coordinated manner. The Alabama Environmental Management Act was adopted, and as of October 1st, 1982, the functions of the following 9 organizations transferred to the newly formed Alabama Department of Environmental Management: the Water Improvement Commission, the Air Pollution Control Commission, Alabama Water Well Standards Board, Coastal Area Board, the Board of Certification of Water and Wastewater Systems Personnel, the Environmental Health Administration Laboratory of the State Health Department, the Public Water Systems functions of the State Health Department, the Solid Waste Disposal functions of the State Health Department, and the Hazardous Waste Management functions of the State Health Department. Today's report will recount some of what has become of that newly created entity we know as ADEM. Information in today's report and much more is included in a just published booklet titled ADEM Celebrating 40 Years, copies of which are available on the table just outside this meeting room. In the 40 years since 1982, much has changed in our state, our nation, and our world. Environmentally, we have all become more aware. With that awareness has come advances in the detection of pollutants. Our understanding of the effects of pollution on human health has increased. Methods have been developed to control or eliminate pollution, and numerous federal and state regulations have been promulgated to protect human health and the environment. Significant events in the 40 years since ADEM's creation attest to the dynamic process of adapting to a changing landscape. The department has continuously to change, work smarter, and keep up with the ever-increasing advances in the resulting demands. Financial resources in Alabama to implement the programs to protect human health and the environment have not kept pace with the mandates and the required adapting and finding of new funding mechanisms has been required. Work Services Division is the single largest contributor to the automation that allows the department to be the lowest cost and among the highest performing providers of environmental regulation in the nation. Our Field Operations Division provides internal support to the Air, Land, and Water divisions with inspections, laboratory services, and data collection. The section devoted to initiatives highlights a very few of the important activities outside the normal work routine of the department. The Water Division initiated a program to test for lead contamination coming from drinking water fixtures in all public schools, many private schools, and daycares in Alabama in 2016, long before EPA will begin requiring such a program in 2024. The Land Division oversaw the destruction of more than 600,000 dangerous chemical munitions. The Field Operations Division was the lead of 12 Alabama state agencies that responded to the largest oil spill in U.S. history, the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. The department and its divisions, branches, and individuals have received numerous recognitions for outstanding achievements during the last 40 years. The list of more than 24 noteworthy recognitions and awards near the end of the report, though just a sampling, is quite impressive and something in which all those associated with ADEM can take pride. These are but a few of the examples of the information found in the document commemorating the 40 years ADEM has been in existence. Again, copies of the ADEM Celebrating 40 Years brochure are on the table in the lobby outside the meeting room. 40 years is a long time. And believe it or not, a number of individuals at the department today were here 40 years ago in 1982 at the creation of ADEM. Several were even present at the predecessor organizations that eventually became ADEM. I'm pleased to introduce you to those people now as you are able to stand. I'm just kidding. They're all vital people, but I'd like to read the names of those who are currently working with the department that have been here for the entire 40 years of the department's existence. I begin with Marilyn Elliott. Where are you, Marilyn? There she is. You can keep standing.
I can sit?
Yeah, no, keep standing, if it's not too bad. Deputy Director, and my right hand and left hand too. Ron Gore, that curmudgeon, he didn't even come. He's our Air Division Chief. Russell Kelly, he's Chief of our Permits and Services Division. Cleethes, you here? Cleethes Stallworth? No, he's out doing his work, I presume. In the Land Division, the Environmental Services Branch Chief. Julie Browning, Permits and Services Division, Information Systems Branch. Tom DeLoach, Water Division, Drinking Water Branch. Glenn Golson, oh, there you are, there, okay. Glenn Golson, Water Division, Stormwater Management Branch. Ron Hamilton, no Ron today. Field Operations Division, Laboratory Branch Chief. Barbara Kelly, you left Barbara home, huh? All right, Barbara Kelly in Administration. Diane Lockwood, Permits and Services Division, Fiscal Branch. Bill Lott, are you here? Where are you, Bill? Not here. He's in our Permits and Services Division, General Services Branch. And then our own Debbie Thomas, Commission Executive Assistant. I'd like to give them all a hand. As you can see, we have some very dedicated individuals here. So with that, let me change gears a little bit. You've seen some of the folks responsible for past success of the department. Now I'm pleased to introduce you to some of the people in later generations who will be the source of future success. As you know, we encourage our personnel to undertake professional development, and when they reach significant milestones, we recognize their achievements. Completing the Certified Public Manager 1 and the Advanced Certified Public Manager 2 programs prepare our professional staff to become future leaders. Now, when I call your name on these, please stand and be recognized. You all are probably all both standing right now. Wave your hand, if you will. Completing the CPM 1 program are Beth Beelan, in our Permits and Services Division, Mishka Cornauer in our Field Operations Division, James French, Permits and Services. Completing the CPM 2 program are Chris Ayler in our Air Division, Alexander Shavers in Water Division, Ryan Cooper, Field Ops, Montgomery, Chris Harris up from Mobile in our Field Operations Division, Austin Pierce, Land Division, Eric Reedy, Permits and Services, not here at the moment, James Thrash, General Counsel. Oh, back in the corner, I didn't miss you there. Billie Jean Washer in the Land Division. Okay, I want to congratulate each of you and thank you for dedicating the time and the effort to prepare yourselves to become the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you so much. Okay. As you know, in 2022, we began construction on our largest physical resource upgrade, the multi-year Mobile Field Office development. This is an aerial shot taken on November 22 of this year, showing the completed boat storage building in the background, the completed slab and early concrete block work for the main office and lab. You can see the foundation for the curved front of the building in the foreground, with Broad Street in the lower left corner. This is a couple of weeks old. This next photo was taken earlier this week. It shows much of the block work in place and the metal trusses being installed. The project is about 40%, a little over 40% complete. Finally, this is an artist rendering of what the facility will look like when completed in the summer of 2023. Now, I want to go off script here just a little bit. I see someone in the room who is also retiring, Roy McCauley. You've been with Manufacturer Alabama for 100 years, close to that? Close to 100 years. He will be retiring. As you know, we try to reach out to all the regulated industries to have ongoing communication, and Roy has been very good with having that happen. Skylar, are you in the room? Skylar Espy will be replacing him. She is one of our alumnae from our legal division, so we'll still have good communication lines open with the regulated community. With that, that completes the report for today. If you have any questions, I'll be pleased to answer. Okay.
Rick, I don't know who did this pamphlet, but this is extremely well done.
Well, I don't see,
Congratulations to whoever did that.
where are you, Lynn? Lynn, you in the room?
She's in the bonus room.
Oh, Lynn's in the bonus room, and we also have some of our other folks that have done a good bit of work on it. We have,
Because this took a mountain of work to make it look like this. This is incredible.
well, we've had a number of folks that have worked on it, and I take very little credit for it, but we do have some very talented people. I want to, I'll give them your compliments if they aren't already watching them on the monitor. Any other comments or questions?
Please share that on behalf of the commission.
Uh,
Our appreciation for that booklet, and my questions about the distribution of it, widely distributed, so that it could be in the hands of as many people as possible, so they can see the work.
It'll be on our website, and hard copies are available out on the table out in front of the meeting room right now, and more will be available to folks as they come in. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good report.
Okay, you all need to get the new ones loaded up. Oh, there's Susan out there?
Well, she's here, but she wasn't out there.
She's the one who did the serpentine design in there to make it more interesting.
Agenda item 3 is a report from the commission chair, and I have no report. Agenda item 4, ADM director's compensation. Agenda item 4 relates to the ADM director LaFleur's compensation or salary. At the October 14th, 2022 commission meeting, the commission issued an order adopting a motion to approve a salary advance for ADM Director LaFleur of one step to step 16 in pay grade 91, which is a per year salary of $187,924.80. The other part of the motion adopted by the commission, I was designated to meet with Director LaFleur regarding his evaluation and execute verification of understanding between the commission and director regarding the results of the evaluation. The salary advance for ADM Director LaFleur of 2 steps to step 17 in pay grade 91, which is a per year salary of $192,645.60, was an option at the meeting. However, the commission voted to approve a 1-step salary advance. I requested that an item concerning the ADM director's compensation be added to the agenda for this meeting for the commission to discuss possibly rescinding its order of October 14, 2022, and approving a salary advance for ADM Director LaFleur of 2 steps to step 17 in pay grade 91. I call on the commission at this time for a discussion regarding ADM Director LaFleur's compensation and possibly rescinding the commission's order of October 14, 2022, and approving a salary advance for ADM Director LaFleur of 2 steps to step 17 in pay grade 91.
Mr. Chairman, I am the one that proposed the one-step advance at our last meeting. And I'll have to admit, it just kind of came as a shot from the hip from me. I didn't think really anything much about it. But further discussion made me realize that that was simply just the first option, which was an easy way to just get the agenda item out of the way, and I think that was a mistake. I think that we should definitely go with the 2-step to step 17, and we propose that as a, what would we call that? A change to the proposal, or?
It would be a rescission of the prior.
I propose that we rescind the 1-step and go to the 2-step, step 17, for Director LaFleur's salary.
Any other comments from commissioners?
I'll just say, I'm, of course, only my second meeting as commissioner here, and although I've worked with the department for well over 35 years in the private sector, and was actually working here as an employee in 1983, 1983, and never knew much about what the director did, because we were all out in the field working, doing our thing. Within the last couple of months, I've been drinking from a fire hose from our director, who is just giving us all kinds of information and looking at his schedule and what he does. So I'm seeing the inside of that part now, well underfunded for what he would be valued at in the private sector. And I'm just, I get tired of reading about what all Mr. LaFleur does, much less if I had to do it. He and I aren't that much difference in age, so I fully support the rescinded motion and increase to the second pay grade.
Okay, we're considering a motion from the commission regarding rescinding the commissioner's order of October 14, 2022, and approving a salary advance for ADM Director LaFleur of 2 steps to step grade 17 and pay grade 91. I was just clarifying the motion
Thank you.
that's okay. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, no discussion, I will call for the question by requesting that all those in favor signify by raising their right hand. Since the motion was unanimous, then the motion is approved unanimously.
I do have an order to circulate.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. Brings us to agenda item 5, which is consideration of proposed amendments to ADM Administrative Code Division 335-1, General Administration Regulations to modify, remove, and add new forms required for the implementation of the department's rules and regulations. Additional modifications are also being proposed to restructure the beneficial use program fees outlined in Fee Schedule E.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Again, I'm Russell Kelly, Chief of the Permits and Service Division, responsible for the Division 1 regulations. We held a public hearing on October 18th, 2022 on revisions to Division 1. Proposed revisions include modifying, adding, and deleting forms necessary for the implementation of the department's rules and regulations. In total, 1 form was modified, 1 form was added, and 4 forms were deleted. Additionally, there were modifications proposed to restructure Fee Schedule E to address changes related to solid waste permit registration program fees. During the hearing and comment period, there were no comments received. And at this time, I'd request your favorable consideration and answer any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner? Thank you.
All right. Y'all got to adopt?
Oh, I don't, yeah.
Okay.
I will entertain a motion from the
Sure.
commission regarding the proposed
Yeah.
amendments to the general administrative regulations.
Move to adopt the amendments presented, as presented in the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. Request that all those in favor of the motion signify by raising their right hand. Any opposed? Looks to be unanimous. The motion was approved unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, other business. Any of the commissions have any other business? Agenda item 7, future business sessions. Chair notes that the proposed dates for the commission meeting in calendar year 2023 have been circulated to the commissioners, with a proposed start time for the meetings being 11 a.m. and the location in this room, the ADM main conference room, also referred to as the Alabama room. The dates for the commission meetings next year are February 10th, 2023, April 14th, 2023, June 9th, 2023, August 11, 2023, October 13, 2023, December 8, 2023. I have a conflict with the proposed February 10th meeting date. I will entertain a motion from the commission regarding the proposed 2023 commission meetings.
I move to accept the commission dates as previously described.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, I will call for the question by requesting that all those in favor signify by raising their right hand. The motion passed unanimously, so the motion is adopted.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Since you're not going to be here on the 10th, is there a plan of action for that?
Yes, we, Vice Chair, go ahead, respond, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
I just need to know that for the record.
Right. All right, we've got, this brings us to the public comment period. We have a couple of requests to make presentations. Request 1, resubmitted request from Justin Overton, Executive Director of the Riverkeeper, Coosa Riverkeeper. The subject of the presentation has to do with fish consumption advisory program conducted in part by ADM from a stakeholder perspective and to identify some gaps in the current program that could be improved upon. The presentation would include a narrative discussion of the background and ongoing work around fish consumption in their watershed. Request 2 is a resubmitted request from Cindy Lowry, Executive Director and Victoria Miller, Advocacy Assistant with the Alabama River Alliance. This presentation has to do with information about the fish consumption advisory program conducted in part by ADM from a stakeholder perspective and to identify some gaps in the current program that could be improved upon. The presentation would include data and findings gathered at the Coosa River Creek Survey of Community Anglers by Victoria Miller. I just want to request that each speaker limit their presentations to not more than 10 minutes. These requests to make presentations were tabled at the October 14th, 2022 Commission meeting and carried on to this meeting. I will now entertain a motion regarding approving, denying, or tabling the request to make presentations.
Move to approve the request to make presentation.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the question by requesting that all those in favor of the motion signify by raising their right hand. All opposed? Seeing none, the motion passed unanimously. I'd like to call on Ms. Overton to make her presentation.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me today, and happy holidays. Yes, thank you so much. So I'm going to do, thank you, I'm glad I can see the 10 minutes. I get very excited when I get the opportunity to talk to folks about my river. So as you know, my name is Justin Overton. I have the pleasure of being the Executive Director and Staff Riverkeeper at Coosa Riverkeeper. Very quickly, I grew up in the bottom of an aluminum john boat on Logan Martin Lake, begging my parents to reel in their rods so that I could go swimming. So this river has played a huge part of my life and obviously a big part of my career, and it really began with fishing. Fishing is an intergenerational tradition, and here in Alabama especially. Lots of folks look to the river for recreation. We have a lot of families that also look to our river systems for food. So the intention of my very brief presentation today is to give you an idea from the boots on the ground perspective, talking to anglers within the Coosa River system, of their understanding of the advisory so we can hopefully work together to ensure that the people who need this information the most not only have access to it, but that truly understand what these fish consumption advisories mean. So let's dive in. So fishing on the Coosa River, there are lots of different types of anglers. On the left side of your screen, you see on Neely Henry Lake a bass fishing tournament. On that particular reservoir, $10.4 million a year of new revenue comes to that particular lake from bass tournaments. So those guys and ladies are often not the folks necessarily pulling in fish to take home for dinner, but are interested in this information. And communicating to that angler group is very different than the gentleman you see on the right at Logan Martin Dam Park. So at Logan Martin Dam Park, we've got a lot of folks that are there fishing for supper, sitting on buckets, pulling in catfish to take home to serve to their loved ones and friends and family. So it's very important to note that fishing is not just for fun. For some people, it's their livelihood, but it's also supper and ways that they convene together on the river with their loved ones and families. But a lot of people that we meet in the field don't understand what these fish consumption advisories that have been issued on nearly every major river system in the state means for them and their family. So let's just very quickly, I'm assuming that you probably are all familiar with what a fish consumption advisory is, but it is an advisory, it's a recommendation that's been issued by the Department of Public Health for a specific fish species for a specific contaminant on a very specific body of water. That's a lot of information for the average person to remember before they drop their lure in the lake or on their favorite creek. So what we have been trying to work on with Coosa Riverkeeper over the past 8 or 9 years is not only getting a better understanding from an agency perspective what our role is in supplementing what ADEM does, what the Department of Public Health does, and DCNR's role. So you'll see how the program works. ADEM goes out and collects the fish tissue, brings it back to their very amazing lab, which we got the opportunity to tour earlier this week and meet with the field division folks. And then the Department of Public Health issues those advisories and puts out a 30-plus page PDF document on their website and issues some press releases. So if you're not following what y'all know is a very crazy news cycle at the exact right time, it's very easy to miss this important public health information. The Department of Conservation and Natural Resources obviously plays a huge role in encouraging people to get out on the water, getting their fishing license, and learning about the places they can get on their waterway close to them. The contaminants that we have in fish tissue here in Alabama, and I'm going to focus obviously specifically on the Coosa River system, is methylmercury. So methylmercury is in a lot of the fish consumption advisories throughout the state, including on the Coosa, which has 35 fish consumption advisories. So methylmercury is atmospherically deposited into our waterways through the burning of fossil fuel and then works its way into the food chain. As I mentioned, nearly every major river has at least one methylmercury advisory in the state of Alabama, and the health impacts are myriad. So it's a known neurotoxin. It can impact developmental issues, as well as for myself, being a woman of childbearing age, it's very important that women especially understand this information if they are looking to, start a family and throughout their lives. So reducing exposure is really following the advisories and the portion recommendations, which is really a deck of cards. I don't know about y'all, but I have never seen anyone limit at a fish fry to just that size of catfish or largemouth bass. So that's really important to think about, not just portion control for your health, but if you're eating fish under an advisory over a long period of time, that has health implications. PCBs were first commercially manufactured in Anniston, Alabama, actually where my dad is from. I would not be standing here talking to you folks today if I didn't grow up going to Anniston wondering why my dad wouldn't let me get in the creeks and eat fish from that area. So it's very, very important for the Coosa in particular that we're taking into account the very important information knowing that PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, are a known carcinogen. And the best way to reduce exposure for them is to not just follow the advisories and portion recommendations, but it's also how you cook your fish and making sure that you're cutting the fat away and you're being mindful of the various cooking methods that could unintentionally magnify over time. I don't know about y'all, but I grew up, we reused our frying oil because it just tastes better, right? But when you have a fish that has PCBs in it, when you are reusing that frying oil, you may be unintentionally exposing your body to this known carcinogen over time with each fry reuse. Last but certainly not least is PFOS, and I'm sure you all have been being inundated with information about PFAS in the chemical compound family, and it's exciting to know that the department is starting to test more places, including the Coosa River system, because the health impacts are just as severe. It accumulates in your blood, it accumulates in your kidneys, as well as it just stays in your body for a long time. It is a forever chemical, so it is obviously persistent, not just in the environment, but also within our bodies. Just this is a graphic that I want, if you can imagine going to a public fishing pier and you're talking to a gentleman, that might be his only day off that week. And I am having to explain to him why that channel catfish has an advisory and what that advisory means. But the aspect of biomagnification or bioaccumulation is a very difficult subject to explain to the average person. So this is a great graphic that we use in the field to explain, as these contaminants work their way up the food chain, how it impacts us as humans. So when we are out in the field, and Victoria, our colleague at Alabama Rivers Alliance, is going to talk to you about this at great length, but just some overarching themes we are seeing and noticing in the field is these advisories currently are only available in one language. And so we have been working to complement that, and we now have our statewide fish consumption advisory hotline available in Spanish. The other aspect currently is literacy barriers. Unfortunately, we have folks that may not understand the language, the literal language, meaning English, but may not also understand some of these scientific thought processes about bioaccumulation, so they don't take these advisory seriously or into account. So we're suggesting providing more visual information so that we don't have to take the actual language barrier or literacy into account, that we'll be able to show the fish that are under advisory with a picture of the fish instead of maybe listing what the fish species is, because not everybody unfortunately knows what the difference between a blue cat and a channel cat is. The next sort of barrier is technological barriers. So at this time, roughly 25% of the Coosa River Basin, the 12 counties that Coosa Riverkeeper works in, doesn't have regular access to broadband internet. And for a lot of folks, that seems like kind of wild, but unfortunately, that is the reality of the situation based on the most recent data. So having that high-speed internet to download a 30-plus page PDF document from the Department of Public Health for some people is just not realistic or possible in their homes. So we have been promoting and supplementing with our statewide fish consumption advisory hotline and partnering with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources to install signs, which I'll show you later, that promote the use of this hotline, which is a more equitable way for people to get this information without relying on the internet, but also having the two languages available. So a room for improvement is currently there are no fish consumption advisory signs at Alabama Power-owned fishing piers on the Coosa. And that is one of the most popular places for subsistence anglers to go have a free place to fish to bring home food to eat. But unfortunately, there have been multiple barriers to getting those signs up. And I'm hoping that you all can help us make that a reality for the many people that are there literally every single time I go or every single day of the week. They deserve to know this information, and Victoria will go into the rationale behind why the public thinks signs is the best route for disseminating this information. The last two things are much more of a regulatory and legislative angle, the codification of this program to prove its longevity. This program, the fish tissue monitoring specifically for ADEM, predates a lot of the great work that Director LaFleur spoke about today. And this is something that they have made a priority. I'm already out. I got too excited. Well, you have access to the rest of this information, and I will turn it over to our colleague, Victoria Miller. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Alrighty, I'd like to thank y'all for the opportunity to present today. As Justin mentioned, I'll be telling y'all a little bit more about our data and findings from our Coosa River Creel survey. A Creel survey is just a survey of anglers asking them how they like to fish. A little bit more about me. I'm Victoria Miller. I work with the Alabama Rivers Alliance, and I conducted this research as an AmeriCorps service member in service to Coosa River Keeper. Bit more about that survey. We gathered over 400 responses from anglers in person and online, which helps us out a lot during the pandemic, of just about how they like to go fishing, how they like to eat fish, and their knowledge of fish consumption advisories and environmental pollution in general. Our goal is just to better understand how anglers eat fish and how they interact with fish consumption advisories on a daily basis. These lovely individuals are my interns from UAB for 2021. I'd encourage y'all to go check out what we compiled and made that original report in 2021, the Creel Survey report, that talks in length about recommendations for improving the program and the educational pieces of that as well. I encourage y'all to go read that report at another time. But a little bit more about those anglers. About 40% of them like to go fishing a few times a week. Most of them are out there between a few times a month and a few times a week. They spend an average of $2,860 on fishing annually. This is each angler's individual impact into the local fishing economy through license sales, bait, ice, tackle. We just ask them to give us a ballpark of how much they like to spend, and people prefer to target bass on the Coosa. For the rest of the presentation today, however, I'm going to talk about just the information I gathered from anglers who eat fish on the Coosa, because I believe those are the most relevant to fish consumption advisories. 61% of the total responses we gathered were of those who eat fish. That just shows that eating fish on the Coosa is very traditionally popular. These anglers are primarily from Alabama and mostly middle-aged white men, but we did have representation from women, people of color, as well as the over 65 crowd and a few individuals under 18 that wanted to participate in our survey. How and when Coosa River fish consumers like to go fishing? They tend to go fishing a bit more than our total group. They are going fishing about half of them are going fishing between a few times a week, and 9% are going fishing almost every single day. The majority of these anglers have been frequenting the area for longer than 5 years, and the majority of them, in fact, have been frequenting the area for fishing for longer than 20 years, and these anglers also still spend a nice amount in the economy each year. $2,520 is also spent, and these anglers like to share their catch with others. More about that in a minute. Cute quick slide real quick about the favorite fish to catch versus favorite fish to eat. Everyone loves to catch bass, but when you're bringing fish home to eat, you'd probably prefer to get a crappie or catfish. How often are Coosa River fish consumed? Looking at the bottom half of the graph here, you'll see the majority of anglers are consuming Coosa River fish between a few meals a year and once a month. But an interesting 19% of anglers that are eating our Coosa River fish are eating the fish at least once a week. And if you look at the areas of the Coosa River that have fish consumption advisories, it's often recommended that they limit consumption to once a month or less. So that's concerning that they may be eating more than the advisory amount. Who else is eating Coosa River catch? People love to share their catch. Fishing is a very popular tradition in the area, and people take their fish home and share it widely. Children under the age of 18 and their elderly neighbors are commonly who anglers like to share their catch with, or they just generally share it with whoever will ask them for it. 8% of anglers we spoke to also like to share their catch with women who are pregnant, nursing, or may want to become pregnant. As Justin mentioned earlier, these groups are at a particular higher risk of health impacts from consuming fish caught under a fish consumption advisory. As I offered this quick summary from Oken that studies interesting about eating fish during pregnancy offers great benefits for fetal development, but mothers question whether the dangers of mercury in fish outweigh the nutritional benefit. How Coosa catch gets on the table? Real quick, people love to fish fry their food around here, and that's definitely what we found over and over again. Awareness of fish consumption advisories, 57% of the anglers we talked to, and again, these are the fish consumers, were previously aware of fish consumption advisories being issued on the Coosa River, though be assured that 100% of the people we talked to walked away with more resources and information about how to protect themselves. We asked them a bit further, if you do know about the advisories, do you know what they may say, as in where it is, what fish to avoid, and unfortunately only 35% of the anglers self-admitted that they feel confident about where the advisories are or not specifically. And of those anglers who were unaware of the advisories, unfortunately, most have been fishing and frequenting the Coosa area for longer than 5 years without encountering fish consumption advisory information. And pictured here on the right is a small, a little hard to see copy of the fish consumption advisory signage we posted. Source of advisory information, how anglers find out about the advisories is interesting. Outdoor Alabama, our online and social media outreach division of the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, is the most popular source of advisory information by far. People were just asked to pick from a list of how they found out, and the next most popular response was generally on the internet or through social media. And then ADPH, the Alabama Department of Public Health, who actually produces the advisories, is the third most popular response. In year 2, we asked anglers a knowledge check question. If you are already aware of the advisories, could you tell us what level of government produces those, such as does advisories come from the federal government, your county government, state, local? And unfortunately, 64% of the anglers we asked didn't know or answered incorrectly. And just to be clear, this wasn't to make fun at anybody for not knowing about the source of advisory information. It was just to point out that if you don't know who produces advisories, it's hard for you to contact that agency in the future when you need to know more subsequent information to continue protecting your health. Awareness to understanding, we'd like to stress that just being aware of the advisories does not necessitate that you completely understand how those advisories could impact you or your family's long-term health. 67% of the anglers we spoke to were previously aware that pollution existed on the Coosa River, but a little bit less, 52%, were aware that eating fish under advisory could impact health. So even if they have heard of pollution or the advisories, they may not connect that back to their health. But however, it's encouraging at the end of the day that almost messed that up. 78% of our Coosa River fish consumers do follow advisories or would like to follow them if they had easier access. We typically tell people, there's a sign right here, you'd listen to it? And they say, absolutely, I would love to. Ideal solutions from those anglers, we wanted to get it from the horse's mouth about what they think we should do to improve fish consumption advisories in Alabama, and the most popular response was signage at popular fishing areas displaying what they should or should not eat. Posting information online is also popular, or using traditional media like TV, paper media, and news. Though many were unsure of what to do to improve the advisory program, but were eager to learn more. Our recommendations from Coosa River Keeper and the Alabama Rivers Alliance is overall we just want to strengthen the fish consumption advisory program and its public outreach. I think it's a little bit of a shame that there's over 200 fish consumption advisories and it feels like not enough people know about them in the public. What specifically ADEM and the EMC may be able to help us do is help us expand testing. Test at popular fishing areas relevant to anglers eating the fish. Perhaps open up a survey to the public. Where would you like to see us fish at in the future? Target species that are most often eaten. As I mentioned, crappie's popular, but it's not just popular on the Coosa, it's popular across the state. Ensuring the fish tissue monitoring program is brought back into full swing after the pandemic is very important. And as we mentioned, we had a tour earlier this week where we got shown how that program is back in full swing, and it's very impressive to see that lab. Also, an idea is to encourage volunteers to bring in fish or accept accredited field data from other universities is an idea. Another one would just be to help us with public communication of this important public health information. ADEM could perhaps help us get this information out in the public. Thank you for allowing me to present to you today. This work really means a lot to me. This is my partner and I as we finish personally driving into the ground the 50th Fish Consumption Advisory sign that features our hotline, where is the only source people can hear about fish consumption advisories currently without an internet connection. These are my sources, and I encourage y'all to check out our subsequent report about this data coming out soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And Ms. Overton, I didn't get a chance to thank you either. I would encourage you just to get together with ADEM on your concerns and you know, see what can be done.
Absolutely.
That's what I would encourage you to do.
Thank
you very much for both of your presentations. Okay, we've reached the point in our meeting where we'll have entertain brief statements by members of the public that are registered to speak, and we have one request from Cindy Lowry with the Alabama River Alliance. Cindy?
Good afternoon, or morning, whatever it is. Thanks for letting me speak to you today. I hate to, for those of you that I haven't met, my name is Cindy. I'm the Executive Director of the Alabama Rivers Alliance, and you just heard from Victoria on our staff. We're a statewide organization that works to bring the network of local community and watershed-based groups together and advocate for clean water policies and healthy rivers. So I wanted to speak to you today, and I hate to end this celebratory meeting on a slightly negative note, but I felt, if y'all have heard me speak up here before, you know that public participation is my passion. And I had to come back and talk to you about the way the public participation request by these two wonderful presenters was handled at the last meeting. The two presenters submitted their request materials exactly as the EMC regulations require. And I was reminding you all that the regulations require, the rule requires a written request with a written description of what you're going to talk about. And the guidelines further state that the chairman may ask for more information and more documentation, but it doesn't say they necessarily will. Each of these presenters did submit a request to the EMC in 14 days in advance and to the October meeting, and each letter included a description of the topic to be discussed with an outline. We subsequently received a response from the chair confirming the receipt and that the request we put on the agenda. The chair's letter made no request for further information and no request for a PowerPoint. Debbie's email did say, please send the PowerPoint when they're finalized, but there was no deadline given for that. The presentation request also made it clear that it was informational, that we weren't asking anything in particular of the department at this time, but that we wanted to re-engage with you after the pandemic. So I understand that being a commissioner is not your full-time job, and that's impossible for you to hear every concern that impacts the health and environment of Alabama. And that is where environmental groups like ours and community groups can play a role. That is, in fact, why we advocated in the early 2000s for the passing of this public participation time to speak. I was actually working in this field then, and this rule was not meant to to create so many hoops to jump through that it's too burdensome for citizens to even try to bring information and concerns to you. It was meant to provide some parameters so that it would make presentations to you good for both sides. It would make it work for all of us. And in fact, we revised them several years ago and heard from you guys some of the complaints you were having about the way it was being used, and we added the 3-minute, which I think was a very good improvement. The previous commissioners who originally passed this, I think, really understood the essential role that you have and the duties of the appointed commission to hear concerns from the public. Unfortunately, in October, instead of hearing our presentation after our first request, you manufactured a technicality and did not hear our request. And unfortunately, this just merely served to just affirm the cynicism and the frustration that so many in the public have with this department. And we resubmitted them. We're very grateful that you heard from us today. We thank you for hearing from us, and we just hope you'll take this into consideration when you get public presentation requests in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Lowry. I know I'll speak for myself. I received that PowerPoint presentation maybe the day before or whatever. I remember it was the very last minute. I never even had time to look at it. And that's really is the concern, because if we let that, I mean, we want you to have input, we really do. But when it comes in that late, we don't even have an opportunity to look at it and therefore get better performed, kind of have an idea of what you intend to present. Now, I'm just speaking personally for me, what happened to me. Do any other commissioners have any comment? That's the way I remember it. And that's why.
Well, and I just want to clarify that the rules don't say that part. And if you feel that you're going to have to deny it if you don't get a PowerPoint, then that should be requested. That would be helpful if it's requested when you send back your confirmation, because the rules say a written request is all that's needed. And for people who aren't staffed environmental groups, right, that technicality could be really important. And coming here, if they took off work or something, that would be a really big blow if they didn't get heard. So I just think if maybe we can, we'll submit the PowerPoints ahead of time, but if you guys can also be sure that you request everything you need when you need it, so that we're not someone's not stuck here in the audience having taken off work or spent our time, valuable time, coming down here and not being heard at that time. So maybe we can just both communicate better.
Any of the commissioners have anything to say?
I was under the impression that any PowerPoint or materials that were to be presented were required to be sent to the commission 2 weeks ahead of time. Is that incorrect?
That has been my understanding.
Well, I actually printed out my comments, and it has those rules written in it and highlighted. Well, it's not highlighted because I didn't have a colored printer, but it states those things. If you want me to pass those out, I mean, you can also just look at them. But it does say written request, and it says that you may ask for more information and more documentation when the chair sends back the confirmation that it was received.
Well,
So,
I felt terrible about them driving all the way down.
Yeah, we all felt bad about that.
I also felt totally unprepared with, I got the email with the presentation at about 5:30 the afternoon before. That just won't work. I mean, that can't, I mean, how can you possibly try to be, prepared and know how to ask, sensible questions if you don't have a chance to look over the material? So that would be my comment. If we need to change the rules.
well, I think the guidelines are adequate. When you get a request, if it doesn't have everything you think you need, then you can ask for that, and you could still say, I need this by 10 days in advance, or if the person was that close to the deadline. If they submit them 20 days in advance, then you can have a little more time. I also will just add that when we had the conversation, I can't remember if any of you were on the commission when we revised and added the 3-minute part, but we had a dialogue with the commissioners about this and about the back and forth, and we made it clear, and that's why I made it clear, we made it clear in this request that we weren't asking you to necessarily respond that day. Sometimes we present information because we just want you to hear it, and we want you to know we're working on it. We want you to know that's what's happening out there in the world that maybe you're not able to always understand or be a part of, because we see things sometimes differently than what the department sees. And we're interacting with the public a lot. We're getting complaints just like the department does. So we want to sometimes just share information with you. You can sit and mull on it, then maybe we start a dialogue, and it doesn't have to be that day. So that was one of the reasons we did add the 3-minute, was because I think the commissioners at the time were thinking that y'all were expected to answer us in the moment when we present, and that's not always the case, and that's why I made that clear in the request that we weren't asking that of y'all at this point. And I think that also has an impact on how much information you get ahead of time if you're expected to do something or answer us that moment. So that's just another thing to think about.
No, I was just pointing out that I was here.
Right.
Some of us have been here
I was not, so.
Won't go.
If you have anything to add because of
I
that.
still have hair.
Anyway, thank you all for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, let's see. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Raise your right hand. Pass unanimously. We're adjourned.